We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, super. Okay. Okay, so folks, just to let you know, the agenda in your packet, that's not the one we're using. We're using the agenda that is set out in front of us. Okay, so do we approve the meeting minutes from June and July?
I move we do.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you, James. Okay, approved. Okay, new business, 305 Valley Place. Oh, please come up. Yeah, what we would like you to do is if you can put your drawing on the table. Speaking to that table there.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to see it in the overhead.
You just want to try to line it so they can see it on here, and then they'll jump into it. There you go, see? And just
I would have brought a big one.
No,
right in the
no, that's
microphone,
fine.
And this is for you if you want to point.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect, so if you
want to
can
use
just.
mine?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I didn't realize I needed it. I'm sorry.
That's it. Okay, then if you can just introduce yourself, tell us a
Sure.
little bit about your project, and what we're most interested in are the trees you're removing, the trees you're replacing them with, your egress path, so how existing trees will be protected, and like tree protection fencing.
Sure. Well, my name's Joe Cherubelli. I'm with Capelletti Builders. The owners of the property couldn't be here tonight, so I said I would come and do this. Their existing pool has a huge structural crack in it, and it's done. So they wanted to put a new pool in, and as part of this project, they wanted to expand a little bit on their pool deck and then build a wall because the grade falls away pretty severely in the side of their property. So because of that, there's 4 trees that are impacted. You can 1, 2, 3, and 4. So.
Could you read off the sizes of the trees and the
Sure,
species for us,
sure.
please?
12 inches, 16 inches, and then 2 more at 12 inches. So as far as getting in and out of the site, we're going to be using a construction entrance off Oak Grove Lane, and all the other trees that will be remaining will have chain link fence, tree protection around them. As far as replacing those trees, we had not discussed that, but we're open to whatever you would suggest we do, and we will carry that out.
Right, because I didn't see a replacement formula, or I also didn't see a box on the plan that states what the trees are that are being removed. Usually, we need some of that information, I think.
They're under the 5, Matt.
Yeah,
Oh, under 5, but
or under the 6.
do they need to identify them, like, in any way on the plans?
Species should be on there.
I mean, I have a picture, I'm pretty sure it's a hickory, 2 walnuts, and a oak or a maple. I'm not an arborist, but I'm pretty sure that's what they are. I have pictures if you'd like to see them on my phone, but I don't know the species of the tree.
Is there any detail for future planting regarding landscaping around the pool? Do you
They
know?
were hoping to plant some privacy trees in this area, but they would be willing to put other trees to replace these in the back. I mean, these 2 trees here are in really close proximity to the house. They have had some limbs hit the roof from them, so I think, they want these trees, they don't want something that big growing back that close to the home. So, and I believe in their neighborhood, there is somewhere you can plant trees to make up for the trees you're taking down that are closer to the home. That's what they had indicated to me, so I'm not
Well,
sure if you're.
there's actually a big tree fund where they can
Okay.
contribute capital towards our fund.
Okay.
And it's $250 per tree for a residential dwelling.
Okay,
So if they would like to do that, that would be great. Because we're looking to progress our fall planting.
okay.
So if they could do 2 trees per tree they're taking down, that would be great. If you could ask them, then get back to the township.
Okay. Yeah, I can't speak for them, but I can ask them to see what they would be willing to do. And, or if you wanted them to add something on their existing property, I'm sure they would be willing to do it, whatever you suggested.
It's really up to them to tell you the truth. We have a recommended tree list. It's right on the Radnor site. website. So those are the trees that we would recommend. You can pick of any of them.
Okay.
That you like.
So it's either do that or 2 trees per tree that we're taking down, so that's $250 per tree. Okay,
Right.
I'll let them know that.
But realistically, group, since they are underneath the 6 trees, this is completely optional.
Okay,
Right.
Because you are allowed to take down 5 trees or less on your property per year, with the exception of a heritage tree, which is 30 inches or larger. And the 4 trees you described aren't that large, it sounds like.
yeah, they have some really nice trees back here that they don't want to disturb. It's just these few that are getting disturbed,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so we would absolutely welcome the donation. We would be happy to have it. We'd be happy to have them plant more trees, but it's really their decision.
Okay, I'll let them know that.
Okay. Is everyone in agreement with that? Okay. I see folks nodding. Okay, hey, Jeff? Good. Okay, and the tree protection fencing, does that look like it's in?
Yeah, I mean, it's on
Good
the
order?
plan, and it looked in order to me.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, good. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, move to approve? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Wasn't sure what to expect, so. I know for
We're a
next time.
friendly group.
Either are we sometimes.
Next time I'll bring a big plant.
You want to watch the next 2 guys, they're never prepared.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Sure.
Okay, so to the next 2 guys, 419 Windlehaven?
What, Dave?
Wellhaven. Well, got it, okay. Okay.
Hi, I'm Matthew Palino here on behalf of the applicant 419 Wildhaven LLC. We're going to raise and construct a new dwelling at that address. The new dwelling is pretty much going to go right on top of the footprint of the existing dwelling. The plan calls for the removal of one 24-inch maple. And the plan shows tree protection in accordance with the township, the detail for the 6-foot chain link fence.
Matt, what's the condition of this tree, subject maple?
It's in pretty bad shape. The 24-inch maple?
Yeah,
It's covered with vines. It's not, it's broken branches,
It's-
a very low crown. So,
It's pretty much right on the edge of the existing driveway, too. It was probably getting beat up just from,
what I would say, though, about the protection is the 2 trees on the front, but on the road.
I saw that
If you could-
circle looked kind of
If you could
tight.
just make that a little bigger, like
Yeah.
take it to the road, because it's
We'll
really.
try to go to the drip line and, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Tie it into the road, yep.
Mr. Palladino is here tonight because of the soil requirement, which then brings us in front of a shade tree.
Right. So are there any questions on this property? Okay, move to approve? Great, thank you. 412 Conestoga?
Don't let him off the
That wasn't easy. Good evening, Dave Fiorello from Omni. We're here on behalf of the owners of 412 Conestoga Road, who are proposing an addition to their existing dwelling. Their driveway currently comes out of Conestoga Road, swings along the side of the property into the back, where there is a detached garage. The owners are proposing to reconfigure the driveway, actually to build a new addition to the house that encroaches in that area, and then create a courtyard out in front. There are a number of pine trees or spruce trees, I believe, along the property boundary. 3 of them are noted, 4 of them, I'm sorry, 5 of them, are noted for removal in this area where the new driveway will be going. We have a list of 4 trees, 3 spruce, 3 8-inch spruce trees and 1 6-inch spruce tree. There are a number of trees on the property that we're proposing tree protection fence along the driveway, since this will be an area that will have construction traffic. There are two small dogwood trees along the front that we're proposing tree protection on our erosion sediment control plan. We have a cedar tree off to the side that we're proposing protection, and then around the limit of disturbance, wherever there are any trees, we're also proposing tree protection along there. There is a row of trees along Conestoga Road. Our construction comes close. There's an existing fence along there now. We're not proposing any additional tree protection fence. We're hoping that you'll consider that existing fence is sufficient for protection along there. We have our details. We have our other items on there that I believe the board looks for, so I hope we've addressed all the concerns that you may have.
Okay. So again, they're underneath the 6 trees per year, and the sizes are, none of them are heritage.
The owners will be doing some landscaping as part of this. The landscape plan hasn't been developed, but I'm sure because of the proximity and they're pulling the driveway away from the property line, I believe they're going to put some additional screening back in there, but I don't know what that screening is at this time.
Yeah, and that's great to hear, and that would be their call to make. And the tree protection fencing, at least to me, looks in order.
It's perfect, actually.
Wow, that's quite the compliment.
No, I wish every homeowner in Radnor was this careful with their trees. It's a gorgeous property, and you can tell they care about their trees a lot.
Well, we know the concerns, and we try to incorporate that into our plans as we put them together.
Give us a minute, Dave, we'll find something wrong here.
Come on, John, I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Okay, any questions from anyone? Okay. Move to approve?
Thank you very much.
Yes, great, thank you.
All right,
Good
thank
luck.
you.
That was probably the easiest 3 plans ever. Okay, so trees to be removed without approval, none. Clearing permits, none. So we go to the 2018 goal update. So if you flip the agenda over to the back side, that's the so-called see attached. So I thought we'd try something new as the agenda items were coming in. Most of them were not exactly old business or new business, but directly related to our goals. So what I did is I just took our goals and I bolded the items that we wanted to talk about this meeting. So the first one was implement the master street tree plan. Matt, I know you were giving a demo before the meeting. Do you want to give us an update?
Sure. I have a list of takeaways. So we've done 1,100 trees. Basically, my wife and I, it takes 2 hours to do 100 trees. So we have some takeaways. How we've been doing it is we've been working from the middle of Radnor, or middle of Wayne, out in the most walkable neighborhoods first, plus the most congested areas first, because I wanted to do Conestoga Road before people come back from the summer. I wanted to do all around Villanova before students came back. So some of the neighborhoods we've done, anyway, some of the takeaways are the most successful trees, because 1,100 is a pretty good survey, the most successful trees under wires are the trident maple and the Chinese lacebark elm. So that just is something that we should remember going forward. They seem like they really, really do fine under wires, and if that's where trees have to go.
And which trees are those again, Matt? Say that?
Trident maple and the
Okay.
Chinese lacebark elm.
Okay.
Zelkovas, there's a lot of Zelkovas in the township, but they grow funny. They come up and then they have a rat nest of limbs, and every Zelkova has that nature to it.
Mm-hmm.
South Wayne, we did a few streets in South Wayne today, and it's notable because it has great sidewalks, and the street trees that were planted there 15 years ago have really thrived. And a lot of those trees aren't in the Hell Strip. So for whatever reason, street trees were planted by Radnor, but the neighbors allowed them to plant them on their property, right on the sidewalk, and they do better there. Garrett Hill, we did a large part of Garrett Hill. Garrett Hill needs street trees badly. They have big gaps everywhere. I think the Shade Tree Commission should come up with this planning plan for Garrett Hill. all ash, every ash tree that we found as a street tree is in decline, every one. Conestoga Road has probably the biggest concentration of dead and dying ash trees anywhere in the township. And a lot of those ash trees on Conestoga are directly under cable and pico wires or in them. I think a priority for the Schaefer Commission or whoever's planting trees is to look for walkable neighborhoods as opportunity zones. Linden, which is sort of not a tree you necessarily expect to be a common tree here, they are thriving here for whatever reason. The linden trees, we didn't find one bad linden. The neighborhood of Beaupre over by the Rosemont Presbyterian Village has a lot of silver maples that are nearing the end of their life. They were planted like when that development went in, and they're really, you can see they're getting necrotic and they're like getting thin at the top. So that's going to be a big problem because those trees are gorgeous trees and they really made that neighborhood stand out at one time, but they're going to be gone at some point. North Wayne has many fewer street trees than South Wayne. It's almost like it's stark how many less trees there are in North Wayne. And these are just street trees, but so North Wayne is an opportunity zone. We only found 2 elms and 1,100 trees, but there are 2 American elms. So obviously we know the story of that tree. The predominant street trees in the 1,100 surveyed were in rank maples, cherries, and in older neighborhoods, sycamores. I was surprised that we found as few ash trees as street trees as we were finding. I think in the parks there's more ash trees. I mean, there are forest trees, and they were never planted here intentionally. So I guess there's some good news for Radnor there, that because like I said, the ashes we did see are not going to survive.
On the ash trees, Matt, do we know if they're being treated or not? Is there any way to tell?
I don't think the township's treating any.
So it would just be whether the person who owns that property is treating it?
So I talked to the wards about a month ago, and this summer they got 4,000 applications for just the ward company. So
to take down
to
ash
treat,
trees or to treat?
To treat. So if the big tree guys are doing that many treatments, then people are getting the word. I mean, people are starting to understand they have to treat if their ash tree can be treated, they should treat it. But that's a lot. I mean, that's a ton.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if you're seeing so many in decline, if we knew, let's say 50% of them are being treated, does that tell us, hey, the treatment is not effective, the tree declines anyhow? That's what I was trying to figure that out.
When I say decline, I mean these trees you would never treat these trees.
Oh, okay, they're beyond the,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Matt, are the ones that are in decline, are they because of the borer? Can you tell?
I can't, because it could be the yellows. You know, there's another ash disease.
We're seeing a lot of fungal disease, ash anthracnose, and we're also seeing a lot of the ash yellows, which is impacting, I would say, probably 80% of the ash trees within Radnor.
But they bounce back from that.
They can, yes.
Yes.
But it does stress the tree out, obviously, and we are seeing EAB, obviously, in some parts of Wayne and different areas of Radnor.
Matt, but did you see any that are still healthy that could be treated?
Yeah, I mean,
You did?
if you know where Bywood Seafood is on Conestoga Road in Garrett Hill, by that store, there's an ash tree. It's the most healthy, vigorous. I mean, it looks like a prize-winning tree, and I don't know if it's on private property, but it's near the street. So, maybe somebody could suggest to the owner that if they're not treating it, they do, because there's nothing wrong with it, and it's a heritage tree, so.
Well, from what I understand, I mean, it has to be treated every 2 years. It's about, John, $300 a treatment, depending on the diameter breast height, correct? Now, is there any way we could get township funding for that? I mean, you know what I mean? I guess last meeting we talked about the $24,000 cutoff, but I mean, could we propose?
Yeah, Joe, your timing actually is perfect because we do have to propose our 2019 budget. And last year, we did propose to put, I think it was $12,000, I'm going by memory, to remediate ash trees. And that could mean taking them down, it could mean treating them. But I do think we have to come up with an estimate for this year, and then we would also have to come up with a recommendation. You know, how we even assess whether one comes down, whether one gets treated.
Right, well, I'm sure we can treat in the winter, so it would be, timing would be in the spring, correct? So we could, you know, have the money available for that if we just spend the winter identifying the, well, if we have already identified the healthy ones? I mean,
Well, but I think we've only done like 10% of the street trees in Radnor, so.
But that actually, well, Matt, I'll let you finish summarizing, and then we'll go to the next topic on the agenda, still in this area, but about what are the gaps, what help is needed, and when should we expect to remediate? Meaning, I assume it's a stepwise approach.
So now, our big challenge now is leaf fall is going to happen. So I feel we need to do all the major arteries before leaf fall. We have to do every walkable neighborhood in Wayne close to the town center first. And then, so you'll have your core. We did the Villanova neighborhoods before the students came back. We've done South Wayne, we've done a chunk of North Wayne. Like where you live, we haven't really, we did Farm Road, you know, so, but I want to engage you when I come to your neighborhood, because I know, you know your trees and stuff, so that will be in the next few weeks, John, so I'll be getting a hold of you. You know, I think there's some roads like 320 where I can tell there's a lot of ash trees on that just by driving by anecdotally, but you know, once the leaves fall, it's going to be a more difficult process.
But then I wonder, is the plan, maybe we keep doing the survey up until the leaves fall, then we stop and we look at the areas that have been surveyed, identify the gaps and come up with a plan for those, look to plant in the spring, and then you restart the survey in 2019 and go through the same process again in the fall.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. And also, the other thing is, so the way we're doing this is, we are calling out every tree under a power line, that every tree where there's an issue with power and cable,
Okay.
that's a street tree. We are calling that out as a special problem or a special case. And so that's going to be identified both in the mapping and all the spreadsheets we do. And so the township will actually have this information, you know, if they want it, if PICO comes and has a meeting, or the cable companies have come to a meeting, we can show them where every problematic tree is. And also, like, before winter, we're going to know where like 100 trees that need to be severely looked at or where they exist. So maybe we won't have as many power issues if we can deal with that. So I think that's right. I think as winter comes, we switch into more a mode of let's analyze what we have and make that stuff actionable.
I'm just making notes.
It's definitely a two-person job. I tried doing it by myself. I can't, because you're holding all these measurement tools and you're calling out numbers and conditions. And so I think at some point Jane's going to probably want some relief. And I know, Laura, you volunteered.
Oh, that's
So
great.
I'll be taking you up on it.
Okay, so that goes exactly to the next item, where do you need help? It sounds like, one, you need a partner. Okay, so that could be Laura. So you have Laura and Jane. Do we also need another two-person team?
Well, the problem is we only have one license.
Right, but does it work, Matt, like would it work, let's say you do surveying on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, someone else does surveying Thursday,
Yep.
Friday, somebody else maybe
That-
Saturday, Sunday, some type
That
of
would be
routine
fine.
or schedule?
That would be fine. I have,
Okay.
you know, this thing is in almost a destroy-proof case. And learning how to do this is extremely intuitive. And, I mean, seriously, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So I think that would be fine. If we could get a few more teams of people. Now, I will say this, though. Jane was a shade tree commissioner for 10 years, and she knows her trees. Not only does she know the IDs of trees, she knows the condition of trees, and that's been like huge because, you know, if you have a two-person team and neither person knows what tree it is, or like they don't see the conditions or they're not. So there has to be, putting the data in doesn't take any real expertise, but doing the identification process correctly is more daunting. And, right, I mean, like, you sort of need a tree person, you know? But you know what, there are people, I run into people like, who know their trees too, so it's just finding those people.
You're doing an excellent job, keep doing it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I would second that, John.
Well, it's great fun, I mean, it really is. That's it.
Questions from any of the members?
Suggestion, would it be helpful maybe to talk to like Temple or a school and try to get like not an intern, but
Right.
maybe something that could,
I think so.
somebody could help you out?
I think so, like, so there's a science teacher at Agnes Irwin who's reached out to me saying that maybe some of her seniors and biology seniors might be interested in helping.
Yeah.
So you can, I think otherwise, we're not going to, you know, if we only do a tenth a year,
Right.
you know, what are we looking at here, 10 years? I don't think we can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Although we have 2 more months of
Okay.
leaves on trees.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe even to November.
Yeah, it would be great to have the surveying done 3 or 4 days a week
Yeah.
instead of 2.
Okay. So, James, is that something you can look into to see if there's
Yeah, I can,
any volunteers?
yeah, I'll try to do something or
Okay.
ask somebody that might know somebody.
Yeah.
I think Trish had advised me that we could put an ad almost on our website,
Mm-hmm.
looking for an intern that had
Yeah.
those capabilities.
Right.
Or any resident that,
Right.
there's gotta be somebody,
Right.
you know,
Right.
volunteer.
Yeah.
Right. And really, it would just be like September, October, November. Yep.
And then in
Okay.
the spring again.
Right. Right. That's true.
I mean, is it something we could put in the budget? Hire somebody, $10 an hour, somebody that, you know, in the summer, next summer to do it? You know, is that something?
I think we could, but my guess is that they would say, have you explored the volunteer route first?
I think if we talk to Temple or a school like that, and maybe instead of paying somebody, maybe offer a scholarship. Like say a $500, not a scholarship, but a grant or something to a
Right.
student
Right. Right.
that helps out maybe, and then we can take
Yeah.
that from it might
Mhm.
start a good relationship as well for
Right.
coming years, maybe.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea, worth exploring.
So John, where do people in your business, where do they come from? Like, are there, like the Williamson College for the Trades has a horticultural program, and they're always looking for community engagement there? Like, is that, or do you go to a special school? Is that how it works, or?
So for urban forestry, most likely you're going to go from like Cornell, some Penn State, UMass, New England states. It's very hard, it's very difficult. I actually have a headhunter trying to find me an employee right now, and it's very difficult.
Okay.
Okay. So it sounds like we could post on the website that we're looking for an intern to do this, mostly to gain experience versus financial income. And it sounds like we could look at some of the
Yeah,
high
look at
schools. Yep, yeah, that would be great.
Some of these ladies that are on garden clubs know an awful lot about trees also.
That's a good idea.
So again, just putting it on the website, you know, and asking for a volunteer/intern,
Right,
you might get some of those folks from the
Yeah.
garden clubs.
yeah. No, that's a
You know,
good
maybe we could
idea.
advertise it at the Hort Society,
Right,
you know, put it on their website or something.
okay. So Ginny is our communications person. I knew this was coming.
Sure, Eileen.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Where's that correction lady? Can we get her account trees?
She's volunteered.
Who is that? That question?
Gretchen.
Oh, Gretchen. Okay, Matt, that was a great update, and even more so, fantastic progress.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
definitely.
Thank you, Matt.
I mean, to go over 1,000 trees, just you and Jane doing this on your own, and it sounds like you know, we wanted to start at the most densely populated areas in town to have the biggest impact and be able basically to start identifying gaps this fall. So I think you've done a great job, so thank you.
It's my
And thank you
pleasure.
to Jane as well.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
She's happy to do it. She
Okay.
misses being on Shade Tree.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind.
Come back.
Yeah. Okay, are we ready to move to the next topic? Okay, the next one in bold is number 3, which is our communication. So this is basically making a decision of the 3 flyers that Ginny sent out and James and Joe were involved in being on that committee. And then from there, deciding where do we implement them and any help needed.
So I don't know if everybody was able to print them out. I mean, I can pass copies around if anybody wanted to refresh their memories. Okay, does anybody need to have a look again, or should we? I mean, I thank you, James, again, publicly for putting me in touch with Melanie. I thought she did a super job. She, you know, maybe I don't know if the folks at home need to see these, but I can hold them up.
Oh, yeah, do you want to put
Oh,
them
yeah, I
on the
could do
table?
that.
That's a great idea. I can tell.
Refresh my memory.
One is,
Was one, I think, was one this one?
no. Well, at least I have them in order.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
this one.
That one's number 3.
Oh, that one's number 3,
Mhm.
okay. The brown border?
That's
Is that
1.
Okay. And then so this is 2.
Exactly.
Okay. So, I thought she did a great job taking, fairly, language or information that was, not easy to digest. And I thought she did a great job of breaking it up, making it readable. She put in a lot of graphics that, again, grab your eye and sort of bring your attention to certain key things, like those free trees. I thought that was great. We're free to mix and match. If there's certain things that we like on one, we could put it on another, like, somebody like that little, like this little leaf with the free trees that really grabs your eye. Maybe we could put that on another one if you like those layouts better. Maybe to start with, though, we should say, which logo did we like? Maybe that's a simpler thing to at least decide on for our shade tree logo. So you can see the first one. Each one has a little bit of a different thing. The second one has the same logo, but it's in a box. And then this third one is entirely different with a big canopy tree. Any thoughts on the logo? Oh, sorry.
I think number 2 stands out in all aspects, all the way around. The logo, the did you know, the leaf, the information is clear and not floating over top of other things. Excellent.
Yeah,
Graphically, from what I can see here, I haven't looked at it particularly, but that reads from a distance.
Okay,
I'm with number 2 as well.
okay.
yeah, it's funny, I initially liked number 1, but I liked number 2 best overall. I do know sometimes people don't like to read things over color. So I think number 2 may be the most readable, and I gotta admit, I do like the nice, clean logo in the box.
Yeah.
My only thing that I also
Yeah.
like originally number 1, but then I followed your thought too, Eileen. With the brown banner just started to maybe distract a bit. But I like the italicized, did you know, in this one. Just this like thing that was just like a little, I don't know, just a little more friendly or something. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I did like it italicized a little bit.
No, I put that on to the middle one.
The number 2 one.
Sure, that's what I thought.
That's totally doable. It might not be that specific font or like italicized, but
Right.
Yeah. Matt?
I think number 2
You like two as well?
And I do like the idea of the italic. It's the shade, you know, it's a shade tree, and the big bold face, do you know, is almost like, it's very strong.
Yeah, there's something a little too punching you in the face with it, I thought. I like the softer approach of that italicized look.
Joe?
Oh, yeah, definitely the middle one. Yeah, that's so easy to read. Yeah, wonderful job.
Okay, great.
Jeff?
No, I think number 2 is the winner.
You really had no choice,
Yeah,
right?
I know. I wasn't going to disagree now, but yeah, number 2 for me.
Okay, and James, I think you already said number 2, right? Yeah. Wow, that,
Okay,
wonderful
great.
work.
I'm glad we had a consensus on that.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as where we are thinking of placing these, I think probably the first thing I at least was thinking was to put it in the Radnor magazine as a full page, right? We could also, I mean, other ideas we had were using it as a flyer to the realtors to get the word out to any of their new buyers and to them as well. So those are sort of my first two thoughts. Obviously, getting it on the website. Certainly welcome to whatever thoughts and opinions the rest of the committee has. Gretchen did a really nice piece in the Radnor Conservancy newsletter, probably saw that, which had a lot of the similar information in it. So that was a big help, too.
And she just posted that on the Conservancy's Facebook page and website, so you can forward it or repost it.
And when I'm going back to the flyer, Ginny, when we post that on the website, can we create links for all of the things, like where it says free tree giveaway, you just click on that and it takes you to a link to figure out how you even fill out the form, for the fall or the spring giveaway?
Yeah, I mean, we have to work on that, and get those things that it would link to.
Right.
We would need to, and that's a great idea. We should write either an article that needs to be written or grab that piece of information from somewhere where it already is residing.
Right. Yeah, because one of the things we'll have to figure out is, like it says on there, advise us of unsafe trees on Radnor streets. Well, who exactly would you advise? Like if you saw that and said, okay, good, I want to take action, what would you do? Like what would the call to action be?
Yeah, well, so maybe we should edit that language a little bit, like call your supervisor. I mean, who would you call? You're right. Would you call John? Would you say call your?
When I walked in the meeting, I told John about a certain tree, and so you gave me an email of who to notify. And John, I don't know if, where it says advise us of unsafe trees on Radnor streets, we could make a link, you click on it, and it takes you right to that person's email. And then you just write a note. Okay,
But what about for the flyers, though? If you're not on the website, maybe we should edit that language to say, call the township arborist.
And then even then, you would still have to find it. And actually, now that I look, Ginny, at the content, I think that's one thing, maybe, I don't know if we can put it down in the border at the bottom, just here's the website address.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Something so it gives you a place to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want to take action now, what do you do?
Okay.
Because I think you say for more information, go to the web, but if we can just provide the
Yeah.
address, because it gets you to radnor.com, maybe just here's the link right to the shade tree.
Yep, that's a great idea, Eileen.
Also, sign up for a free street tree in the fall. It's not, the way I would not, it's not free. And so it's not a giveaway.
It's virtually free.
Well, it really is.
Because it's $35.
Sign up for a street tree in the fall.
Okay, so just take the word free out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to put the monetary figure on with that?
No, because you never know, year to year, it might change.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, like, an estimate might help.
How about like a
Might help more people.
reasonable
I-
cost? I think it's $30.
Yeah, I think or $35. I must admit, I think I would leave that out. Just sign up for a street tree in the fall giveaway. When you say giveaway, I'm thinking, oh, you're going to give me something. And I do think that $35 is just to make sure you have some skin in the game, you know, that you will water the tree and take care of it. So I think it's okay if we just take the word free out.
Okay. So can we back up for 1 sec? So what, are we doing anything to the spring giveaway? Was that language okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But hey, Laura, if you can help us out, so if somebody wants to take action and we give them a link, they click on the link, where would it take them to?
The Conservancy.
So that's what we should link it to, is the Conservancy
Yeah.
website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then it would take them to, that link only goes up when it's live.
Okay.
And that goes live in like a week before,
Okay.
you know, so it's not ongoing.
Okay.
So there isn't information up there if they checked it before a week?
Well, there's information up there year-round.
Okay.
But is there anything, Laura, that would,
You can't actually sign up.
but
Right,
is
right,
there
right.
something that would tell them, hey, come back in April and sign up for the free spring giveaway?
Yeah, I'll talk to Gretchen.
Okay.
Okay.
And then contact one of the licensed tree arborists. John, is that something where we have a list of the licensed tree arborists that we could post?
So they are the licensed arborist of the township,
Okay.
and that list is provided by Trish when requested.
So would the link go to an email to Trish, or is that how you want to do that? Or is there something we could just have a list of the arborist and we just keep that up to date? And they click to that?
You know, I think that'd be a question for Mr. Rice, just to make sure there's no,
Okay,
because we're not promoting tree firms.
right.
We're just providing a list of licensed. I got to make sure that we're not held
Right.
liable for promoting a
Okay.
certain service.
I don't think you have to have a link. I think if we say, a certified license, or a certified tree arborist.
Yeah, that's a
you're-
good idea.
You're just saying,
Oh.
go do your own.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to change that.
Okay, well, let's say that. Well, when you say certified and licensed with the township.
Yeah.
Certified
But you know
arborist
what's funny?
is licensed.
Yeah, I don't, if we were to give a list of the certified tree arborists, I don't think we would be promoting any one company, because we're just giving information. This is in Radnor who is licensed. It's, you know, all equal and fair. You can pick any
But
one.
that, but
I
this
think that
list
would be okay.
changes
Yeah.
often, so I like the idea of just
But
saying.
where, how would somebody today know? Like, do they go to the Radnor website and it's posted somewhere there?
We could have them contact Patricia
Okay.
Sherwin.
Oh, okay.
We could have a link to her email, and
Yeah.
that request can be made at that
It's
point.
a good idea.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can check credentials as well. You can put a link to the ISA,
Mhm.
and you can click to see if somebody is a certified arborist,
Oh, okay,
so they can double check if they want.
okay.
What's it called, James?
The International Society of Arboriculture.
Okay.
ISA.
So maybe,
I think they have a direct, you know, they have a direct link to that, right?
They do. They have a section called Verify an Arborist, and you can either put your zip code in, if you know the correct spelling of the person's last name, but you can verify if somebody actually has those credentials.
Okay, it's a great idea.
and then sign up to help remove invasive plants. How would you do that? Like, the last bullet, sign up to help remove invasive plants, vines from our parks. What should that, if someone's interested in that and they click on the link, where should that go?
That's Conservancy ad hoc, thing that we do.
Okay.
It's hard to say.
Like, how would you want volunteers to reach out to you?
Yeah, yeah, so, do you want to come to mine? Sorry.
That's okay. So, I don't know exactly how you would say it. You would probably want to say,
maybe just put the Conservancy link,
Maybe
you know, Radnor
some-
Conservancy website link, because we occasionally have them at certain times of the year. They're not throughout the year.
Okay.
And it's not just always us. Sometimes Ithan Valley Park has it, but we actually do act somewhat as a conduit.
And would there be information all year round on
Yes.
this? Okay.
Yes. And I think just by contacting the Conservancy, that it just goes to Gretchen, and then Gretchen fields it,
Okay.
however.
So
Okay.
maybe we could even just say, sign up with Radnor Conservancy to help remove invasive plants, vines from our parks. And that way, people would understand, hey, we're taking you to the Radnor Conservancy website because they're the ones that are the conduit for this.
Yeah, I have to actually ask Gretchen if that's how she wants that to be.
Okay.
You know, this whole volunteer piece is a little ambiguous of how, you know, we want to start to promote this, but it's also kind of it's a whole nother program that we have to develop, and it's a little bit more complicated than that.
So Laura, do you want to talk to Gretchen and let us know, should we keep that bullet on there or should we take it off?
Hey, John, I have a question about this. Jack brought up, he had a want about his two parks. And there was
That's where this is
someone
coming
took
from.
that somewhere. You met with, so is there a possibility that there's going to be some pro removal of?
So Horgan, the township's contractor, met me on site. We reviewed Jack's request. And Horgan did submit a proposal. I guess there were preliminary numbers based on the vine removal, hazard tree removal, reforestation, and some other mitigation task. I don't think it went anywhere to date.
Okay.
Yep.
I would say remove it, because we will do our own advertising. Very
Okay.
few people really are looking at that to do that. So I think it's
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Okay.
I agree with that, is to remove it because, one, we've been working historically on this piece for over a year more. Jack, the first step for Jack was to get a number so that we could figure out even if it was manageable. But we're also still working on volunteers. Where do they come from? Do they come through our township? Do they come through Parks and Rec? Do they come through Shade Tree? Do they come through Conservancy? So I agree with Laura that we don't have people knocking down the doors right now.
Okay.
So let's
That's fine.
keep it.
Yeah.
Meaning, let's eliminate it from the flyer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just clarify.
Let's eliminate it from the flyer, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean we still can't work
Oh.
on good ideas for how to get
Sure.
volunteers
Yep.
corralled.
Right, we just probably need some organization and some leadership before we advertise it. Yep.
Mhm.
And we can always add it back on,
Mhm,
you know,
sure.
when that day comes. Okay.
Yeah. How about this section for more information? Any edits on that? This is mostly directing you to the township website under Shade Tree. And this is where Joe, James, and I were going to have to be
Yeah.
writing some articles up,
Mhm.
probably having John's input as well. I'm not really even sure where we are on all of these yet, but, I mean, we do post those tree companies, right, John? Yeah.
And we do have a list of trees that thrive in our area. That's the recommended tree list.
Yep.
So we have 2. A heritage tree, I mean, at least that's a very easy definition, if it's not on there. How to protect them, that would take a few more words.
Mm-hmm.
I guess eventually we can start putting it to links.
Yeah.
How to manage the trees.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think tree diseases, even if we just have an emerald ash borer up there, that would be a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, let's go ahead and populate it with what we have readily available today, and then let's see where the gaps are, and then let's see, okay, how can we fill the gaps?
Yeah, I think it's a working document. I mean, we're going to continue to add as
Right,
the thought process goes through.
right.
Right. Okay. Did you want to talk about the website comments that we have been going through as well at this point, or you want to save that for another time?
You mean how to edit the content that's on the website
Yeah.
right now? Do you have a proposal in place, or Ginny, does it make sense to do this, to circulate it by email, almost like you did with the flyers, so we can kind of read it offline, absorb it, and then come to the September meeting?
That's fine.
Okay, great.
Okay, sounds
Okay,
good.
Yep.
So this cost us about $250.
I think that's great, because we have.
I thought that was a really reasonable price for what
Yes.
she did.
Yeah, no, the work looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'll get these edits made, bring it back to the September meeting for our final approval. And once I have the final piece, take it to a printer and get an idea. I mean, actually, I don't really know that much about that side of things, but just to get it ready to put into that magazine.
Right.
And I don't think that's going to be a whole lot either. The flyers to the realtors, they go out by email, so it's really just a PDF.
Right, right. From my standpoint, I'm okay approving it tonight with the comments we've made, without seeing it again at the September meeting, but are others okay with that, or would you like one final look at it?
No, I think that's the right move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not slow you down.
Okay.
So, yeah, very nice
Okay.
job, Ginny.
Thanks,
Let's
thanks.
have another round of applause. We're making progress. Okay, very good, very good. And then the last question was, is there any help you need?
Only, helping to write some of these content pieces for the website. And maybe that's something, once we discuss what we do want on our website.
Laura?
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great, thank you. So anything else on this topic before we leave this topic? Okay, super. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead, James.
The Facebook page for Radnor Township, could you put it on that?
Huh.
Yeah.
I just looked
That's
at
a
like
great idea.
1,700 followers, so
Oh,
Yeah, why
oh,
not?
it'd be
Great.
a quick hit.
Yeah, could do that.
Good thinking out of the box there, Mr. James.
Thank you.
In the box, too.
Okay, super. Okay, next item is balance the budget. So two parts of this. One is obtaining grants. Jack's working on that. And the item for tonight was really provide estimates for anticipated expenses. What should our 2019 budget expenses be? And per the last meeting, I did not recall if we had a leader for this. So that's where we can talk this through, or we can look for a volunteer and come back with something in September. I can tell you, if it were me, I would need time to work up what would be a reasonable budget. Like, I would need some offline time to think about this, so.
I
but-
don't think I'm the right person for it, so.
Okay. Although you probably know a lot about tree expenses, taking down, putting up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Laura?
can help out.
Can I say something about this? Because
Yeah, please.
this budget is super important, and it's complicated, and I think that really what it's going to entitle is, working with the arborist, with John, working with Bill White, and working with a BOC member as well, to really, and also Public Works, to really understand the mechanics of all of this and the projections, and they have numbers, they know how to work that. I don't think this is something that this board on its own should be doing.
Okay.
There is so much money that has not been allocated to this fund over the last 3 years. And therefore, as Manager Zinkowski has mentioned, we are 25 years behind.
Mm-hmm.
And we are needing to do anywhere between $3 to $4 million a year. And that's what he said, for the next 25 years to get caught up. And that's only just to remove the trees from the Radnor Street right-of-ways. And that doesn't include replanting and maintaining. So I think that that's something that if you have like a couple point people and then you have your other, but that committee needs to be pretty deep with, working with those people, if that makes sense. That was going to
So
be one
you're-
of my important steps for the Shade Tree Committee to think about.
Okay. So,
Laura, what's the reference for Manager Sinkowski saying that? Where did he?
He
was
said it last Shade Tree
Oh,
meeting.
during the Shade Tree Committee?
Yeah.
It followed the last bad winter storm when there was so much tree damage and down wires, and Commissioner Booker suggested that, people be allowed to just take street trees out that were around the wires.
Right, okay.
And then Bob came to a meeting, and I think what Bob's talking about is a township responsibility, not a Shade Tree Commission responsibility.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think it's really understanding the divisions of where the monies are needed to be placed. What does Shade Tree need to have under its budget? And what does the township need to have with Parks and Rec, or with Public Works and all of that? So it's just it's complicated and it's big.
right.
And yeah, he did mention it twice, once or 3 times, okay. But yeah. So that was one of my points. I'll come back.
Oh, but hey, Laura, sorry. No, I just had a question for you. So you were suggesting that Bill White be involved, the BOC
Yes.
be involved, and who else?
Well, not necessarily Public Works.
I thought you said Public Works.
Yeah, Steve McNeil's would be very important to have with John.
I would also like to have Norsini there. He's very
And Norsini
versed
is
in
very-
budgets.
definitely.
Very versed in budgets, yep.
But you've heard Steve say very politely each time, this is your responsibility to put this together and put it forth to the BOC. I have another point that I'll make now since I'm here, and I want to say that, and this is because of the budget piece, but it's also understanding the whole process, is that we need for an official BOC standing committee shade tree person or commissioners. This is vital to the overall picture of the Radnor Shade Tree Program. Currently, there is no board of commissioners standing committees for the shade tree, right? There's nobody here that sits with you guys on your meetings. Some of the other standing committees are open space, Parks and Rec, which you have 2, Public Works and Sewer, and there's a few others, but those are the ones that are kind of in this grouping. And I said I would suggest a reorganization to include the Shade Tree Commission with at least 2 or 3 seated commissioners. The fact that the township is 25 years behind in budget for arbor work shows that there is an urgent need to have elected and decision-making people communicating about the shade tree issues. This way there is common knowledge, accountability, transparency, and accomplished legislation. So if you look on the website of the township website and you go to the Board of Commissioners and you look down on their tab, you will see standing committees. And they will have a list of these, which I just kind of listed 4 of, I think there's 8. Each commissioner, it sits on one of these, or multiple of them. And I don't know why there's never been a shade tree one. So I really think in order for the Board of Commissioners to understand what the budget is going to be and to be able to vote on it, they really need to be involved. And so they can tell their group that, this is what we've been talking about. That's what I mean by the transparency, and it's more. So that would be talking.
Designate somebody to look into that?
That would be just
I think we've
talk
been
to.
trying to, and we have not gotten anywhere.
Well,
So I don't know who, does the
Lisa.
BOC report into anyone?
You go to Lisa,
And
and
who
you
is
say,
Lisa?
Lisa, this is what has to be done.
Okay, that's good to know. Does Lisa have a last name?
Borowski, she's our president of the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would totally reach out to her, and to Bob Zimkowski.
Okay.
But it's really Lisa's job to pull these standing committees together.
Okay.
They typically do this in January, and we've been asking for this actually for the last 2 years.
Correct.
But I think this is really time, especially because of this budget and because of the urgency of the amount of money that's being floated.
Yeah, and I
I'm-
think previously,
You've done so much. Do we want to designate maybe some of the new members to reach out to Lisa?
I can
oh, Claire, that'd be great.
I can reach out to Lisa, but I also want to say that I do think it's important that, I know from Parks and Rec Committee or Board, that we look to the commissioner for information and procedures and lots of different things. So I think it's an excellent idea to have a commissioner on this board. So I will reach out to Lisa.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know if Jack was here, he would fully support this, because I think it was Jim Higgins, and then he retired, and then he was never replaced. And then since then, we've just informally contacted Jake Abel, but we have not had anyone volunteer from the BOC to be a member. So,
Yeah.
but we have not contacted Lisa yet, or at least I have not. So that would be great, Claire. And then with, including Bob Zinkowski as well, maybe he can help. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Laura.
Okay, so John, I don't know if you can help us out here with regards to the budget. I thought Bill White or Steve had said last time that we need to have an estimate together. I thought it was near term, like perhaps by September, October. Is there a drop dead date by when we need to have this together and submit it?
Don't quote me on the date, but it is sometime in October, I believe.
Okay. Okay, okay. Okay, so we have some time, but not a lot of time. So is there a volunteer, someone who has a passion about finance or would like to head this up?
That is not my expertise, finance.
Well, I have a suggestion. Why don't we go ahead with, this board has changed, actually evolved in the last year in a very dramatic way. We've spent way more time now on things that are important township-wide than we ever did before. Right, Matt, from when you joined, when I first served on this, all we did was approve. So it wasn't really a reason for a Board of Commissioner maybe to sit on this board. But now that we're moving forward in a township-wide initiative to, preserve our canopy, all the things that we're doing, why don't we move forward, and then work the budget in along with that initiative. So I don't know if I mean, I'm happy to start there too with Board of Commissioners, but I'm not gonna head up the budget. Sorry, I'm not speaking in complete sentences.
That's okay. I would even consider doing it. I would just need to
We can work together.
contact these folks, yeah. And I think, yeah, John, if I look at this list, I think I know most of them with the exception of Steve that you just introduced me to tonight via email, so, we're getting there. Yeah, and if we could work together on it.
Well, I have a question now that we're talking about the budget. If you can we look at it?
Yeah.
So where do these numbers come from? I mean, the actual to date, basically, we have interest, that's the only revenue, and then our services for our arborists.
This was off a presentation that
Bill White.
Bob and
Bill.
Bill gave to the commission in, I think,
Last
July.
month.
Was-
No,
Yeah.
just last time.
Just last month, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
that
so,
was
but you
July.
see that there are holes, right? So-
Yeah, there was an explanation for that, and I can't remember what it was. Was it a fiscal year issue or
It was,
something?
yeah, because like, for instance, I don't think the tree planting had occurred yet. So I don't think he knew yet what those numbers were going to be, because isn't that a fall issue?
So maybe we need some direction on really what goes into the budget and where those numbers come from before we can actually comment on it.
But Bill, and Claire, I don't think you were here, Bill did present that at the last
Okay.
meeting in July.
Oh, I
So we
wasn't
could
here.
always go back and look at the tape to refresh ourselves, because I can't say I could cite it off of the top of my head. But I do know, like, the 25,000, the big tree planting, I think that basically comes from, if you go above that, then you need to do a competitive bidding process. So in a way, that has been capped out at 25,000. Not to say that we need to stay there, but that's the reason for that number. The street tree planting, the 83,000, is because the township has decided to hire an architect and to actually have this project go on in the business district area. And I think the quote is about 83,000.
And has that been approved? Yeah, and set aside?
Has not been approved, it was just, the proposal was just submitted, I think, last week, so.
Okay, so that's coming, okay.
Park tree replacement, truthfully, I don't know where the 7,900, I don't recall where that came from.
Okay.
But that gives you an idea of the heavy hitting cost.
Yep, great.
Where they came from. And then one of the other ideas, I'm just going to say it while it's fresh in my mind, I think Kimberly Donchis was here last time and mentioned it, that we could also do a type of spring planting or small tree planting underneath the wires. We do the big shade trees, but for those with wires, we could do, smaller flowering trees, and that could be a whole separate, let's say, 25,000 or a separate effort.
A trident or a Chinese elm.
Exactly.
They spark. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so I will note myself as the leader with John's help, and we'll see what we come up with. Okay.
I'm happy to sit on that if that helps at all.
Sure.
Who did the budget last year? Was it from our committee?
I believe so, Joe. And the only thing I do remember was really the emerald ash borer. How much would that cost? And so we put in a request for that. I don't see that specifically listed here. So maybe it didn't get approved at the BOC, but I think we're kind of learning how the process works. That one, if we want something approved at the BOC, we really need to be there, presented, and make a case for it, which makes sense, to kind of lobby for the funds. And then I think to Laura's point, we would have an easier time doing that if we had somebody that actually sat on our committee to begin with. And then maybe they could help us to say, yep, the BOC, the environment is right, this would make sense, or no, the township is going in a different direction. This really does not match up with the goals. So,
And we can use Matt's.
yes, we have
inventories.
data.
Yeah, exactly. To show them that these trees are in decline.
Yeah,
You're not gonna get $1 million, but let's get.
Maybe we could just
Yeah.
take care of the hazardous trees near the wires.
Right,
Right. Okay. Okay, good.
We'll talk.
Okay. Yeah. We'll just clap for everything tonight. Let's see. Okay, then the last item was being green. Okay, let me just get my agenda here. Okay, so this was something I'd emailed folks about, and the whole idea behind this goal is how can we be green with regards to paper, green with regards to resources, utilizing the township's time. So I just put out these 3 options regarding green, paper-wise, and actually this would save Tricia's time as well. So one was sharing drawings. James and I did that once. We're still talking. It seemed to work out okay. The other one is a memory stick. That was Tricia's idea. She said that would be very easy for her to do. And I just put another one there for other. Is there any other ideas?
Yeah, is it an option to just have it emailed to us? What would be the difficulty?
I don't, that's a good question. When Trish said memory stick, I just assumed, hey, these are really large files. Maybe they're
Sure.
just zipped. I don't know if that's the
Yeah.
case. But yeah, that's a good,
Large
I
files.
mean, that would save somebody from traveling
I
around the
know.
township.
I agree. Yeah, no, let me put that down. Okay, any other options?
I like the email.
Okay, so what I was thinking, we could try piloting this. I did have one other option, I'll just mention it to you. I tried one meeting, just following along, watching them with no drawing whatsoever. And I found that I really couldn't read or see enough on the screen to make heads or tails of it. So that one I would rule out.
I sort of need a big
Yeah.
packet, because if I'm going to do all the visits, which
Yeah.
I'm happy to do,
Yeah.
it's just very useful to take that to the site.
Yeah, and I fully support that. I think that's an easy one.
Maybe we, choose the one that works best for us, so that.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so that,
Oh, could we have more than one option, you mean? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
can we have more than
actually,
one
that's what I was
option?
thinking for September anyhow. Let's just, if everybody picks whatever their favorite is, let's pilot it. And then everybody can give feedback, hey, this worked well for me, or this didn't work at all. And then,
And do
we'll
we
figure-
need,
we'll-
if we got a full set of drawings, do we
Mm-hmm.
really need a full set of drawings? Couldn't we maybe just get the page printed out that has the tree information on it?
sometimes you need.
I don't know.
You
I
think-
don't know if that would take Trish more time to have to go through it and decipher, okay, I'm going to give them page 3 and page 6.
I think you need to look at existing conditions sometimes, because it shows you where, if a plan's not right, you can see from the existing conditions, sort of, it sets your perspective, I think.
Okay.
I also think it sets a tone with the contractors and engineers that they come prepared. So there is something to having those plans professionally.
Right, I'm not
presented.
suggesting that they would come with a smaller packet. I'm suggesting
That
that
we-
Trish would just print out, but I see your point about it maybe being more work for poor Trish.
Yeah.
Why don't we have 2 sets for the entire panel here, one for this side and one for that side, in case we do need it? That'll reduce,
Yeah.
by 80%.
Yeah, and Matt, are you okay sharing your drawings with Ginny and Claire?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Then that's one side there.
And Jack.
And Jack, sorry. Oh, yeah, so that's 4. Yeah, 4 there.
Mm.
Okay.
It's a lot to look at one set.
Okay, yeah, I know.
I'm happy with that. I can.
Okay, and then James and Jeff, I heard you want email. That would be your preferred option?
Yeah.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, email's fine.
Okay, Joe, okay. I'm good with that, too. I've done the sharing drawings before. So we'll do 2 sets, and then we'll just figure out who at the table wants the 2 sets. I think that's okay. Okay.
I'll take email as well.
Okay, that's good.
So we can have it ahead of time. I like to look
Okay.
at them.
Yeah, I would take email ahead of time, too.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'll do that. And then I'll just note to Trish, if for some reason she can't do the email, memory stick obviously is okay. Okay.
Although, I do guess that memory stick would mean we'd have to bring some sort of personal laptop to be
Yeah.
able to view it at the meeting, though. Okay.
Yeah, but I guess with email you would too, unless you want to print it out.
Or, I mean, you could look at it on your phone, which we all have.
You're good.
Yeah.
I totally want to see you test that out, because if that works, I'm going to look to mimic you. No, that would be
There is
great.
Wi-Fi here, right?
I assume so.
In this building, yeah, okay.
Or a tablet even. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, about having to bring a PC. That would be a
But that's
problem.
okay, we'll put down our first preference is email. We'll just kind of take it to that. Pretty soon, she'll just be sending us a link to the website. which that would work too, actually. Let me, I'll note that, because I do think Trish posts the drawings on the website.
It does. It's called a packet. It's on,
Okay, I'll note that as well.
it's hard to read.
The drawings are?
Yeah, I mean. you have
Oh,
to-
okay, then maybe that.
You can blow them up, but you're not going to get the full screen. So
Oh,
you're going to be all over the map trying to figure it out.
okay.
The reason for the, just thinking now, the memory stick.
Yeah.
Is because I think when people submit plans, they give
Tricia,
5
memory
sets
stick?
of plans and then a memory stick.
Oh.
So she doesn't get an email of it.
Oh, so
she
it's
might
easy,
have-
she just has to copy the memory
yeah,
stick.
She might have to, can you
Upload them?
email it? I mean,
I guess you
She
could,
could
you could
email from the
upload it and
memory
then
stick,
email
though.
it.
You can?
Yeah.
Yeah, well then,
Yeah,
perfect. I'm not very tech savvy.
okay,
So.
okay, we'll give this a shot.
There is Wi-Fi.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's it for the updates on the goals. Okay, so let's see. Now we're at number 7, other business. And out of the other business, this is, A is the only one we need to talk about, is just the 325 Barclay issue. So I'll try and do a summary of that, just so we're all on the same page and folks can comment. So 325 Barclay, that's where a resident who is building a new house proposed to remove a healthy heritage tree. We approved that, not unanimously, but did approve it with the interpretation of the ordinance that we have the right to approve or disapprove. But previously, we have interpreted that as it is the resident's call. We will encourage them not to remove it, but at the end of the day, it's their call, providing they make good on it using the tree replacement formula. Actually, reading the ordinance after the meeting, in detail, yep, we can approve or disapprove it. It doesn't give any criteria by which we would do so, so it sounds like it's up to us. If we did disapprove and the applicant didn't agree with it, they would have 20 days to take it to the BOC and get that changed. And Bob Zinkowski, the manager, did email us saying, hey, just be aware that the laws and the BOC will look to favor the residents. I think and I'm using my own words now, to give them that freedom to operate within their own property. So John did notify during this, the applicant that, hey, please hold, don't remove the tree until we can figure this out. John Rice, who is the solicitor, helped us figure this out and said, hey, you approved it at the last meeting, it stands. So I think that's our path forward for 435 Barclay. But I do think we'll have to figure out how would we want to handle this in the future. And I'll just say one last thing. I was trying to reflect back to say, hey, do we have any prior examples of this? And I could only think of one. And I think it was last year, very similar situation. A resident came, they bought a plot of land, it's a somewhat wooded lot, they're building a new house. There's a heritage tree, and the heritage tree basically sits right in front of the house, like near the walkway, near the driveway. And I must admit, Jack did challenge them to say, hey, could you reposition the house in order to save the tree? And the person said, no, given the setbacks required by the township, this is basically where the house has to go. And given the slope of the property, this is how the driveway has to go. So no, they couldn't, but they did either offer to fund additional trees to make good on it because it was a wooded lot. They could only plant so much, or plant the trees. So they made good on taking down that heritage tree. So that's the only other example I could think of.
So if I may, if there is a question of a tree and you're concerned and don't know how to vote on it that night,
Right.
I'm happy to go out to the site with the applicant, look at the tree, review it, find out if there is some alternatives, see if some things can be moved around, and most importantly, make sure that we're not asking an applicant to do something of a tree that doesn't have a very long longevity value to it, which is the case a lot of times. Homeowner looks at a tree just because it's in full leaf, doesn't mean the tree is structurally sound. So there are a lot of different variables we want to look at before and then I can report back to you folks, let you know what we found, and then we can make our decision at the following meeting.
Eileen, even if we make the decision to not approve it, they still can take it down, correct?
They can go to the BOC,
Okay.
and the ball then is in their court to go to the BOC. They have 20 days, according to the ordinance, to appeal that decision. Right.
And if the BOC denies them taking it down, is that the end of it then? They cannot take it down if the BOC refuses? Because, I mean, isn't there a personal property issue that comes into play there?
Legal matters that come into play that we won't discuss tonight, but
Right,
the BOC absolutely can deny it, but then there's
okay, thanks.
some backslide.
Have you ever seen that, John?
Not in this township, but I have at other townships. And most times, I would say 99.9, it goes in favors of the applicant.
Yeah, and this applicant did say they would plant 4 large canopy trees all along the street. I think
Or larger to
6 trees, but I think 4 had to be large canopy, and the 4 would be along the street.
And I did, when I emailed Mr. Malone, I left him a voicemail in his office. He never returned a phone call, and then after the emails were going back and forth, I think it was like 8:45 at night, I emailed him. He called me, I think, at like 9:05 that night. He was very respectful, totally understood, just asked me to give him a heads up what was going on. So we did provide feedback, so, but he didn't, he was very respectful.
Yeah, no, and I did drive by, and the tree was still standing there, so I think, I give him credit. It's not that he raced to take it down, knowing that we were in a bit of a state of flux. So,
Eileen, thank you for your leadership in this one, professionally handling the steps and not reacting.
okay. Well,
Overreact.
thank you. I wish I knew the ordinance just a little bit better
Yeah.
1 month ago, word for word, but.
We're going to spend some time this winter studying
Yes.
the ordinance and doing a little bit of classroom stuff for sure.
Education.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, please.
I'm John Sheehan. I live at 409 Windsor Avenue. I was here at the last, I think the last 2 meetings. Regarding the removal and replacement of trees. Radnor Township has been losing tree canopy for many, many years. I haven't heard anybody who disagrees with that. But I'm not sure if anybody has actually measured the rate of loss. I do know that with the current shade tree replacement formula, if you take a big property with lots of trees, small, medium, legacy-sized trees, and you take the trees down and you say, well, what do we have to replace? The replacement formula basically provides for replacing about 3% of what's removed, which I think is a big problem. Based upon that formula and the replacement formula, it's contributing to the loss of tree canopy. For a developer or a property owner who wants to take down a healthy tree, a dangerous tree should be taken down, no question about it. A diseased tree should be taken down. However, if you start taking down healthy trees, you're decreasing the canopy of Radnor Township and increasing the stormwater runoff problem. To me, if there was ever timing to increase the focus on the value of shade trees, it was August 13th, when there was incredible stormwater runoff. My daughter-in-law, who lives right next to Gulf Creek on Shimoni Road, called me, said she was scared. I came over to her house. She lives on the inside of the creek. I parked my car on the other side of the bridge because I was afraid my car would go into the creek if I tried to cross that bridge. But in any case, it was really a huge problem in a large amount of rain. Now, as you all know, there are hundreds of publications that when you look up shade trees and what are the benefits, reduction of stormwater runoff is at the top of the list. It's not the major solution to the runoff problem. My guess is it's about 10 to 20% of the solution. It's a big part of the solution. But the way it's working in Radnor is with the tree canopy going down, it's increasing to the runoff problem. It's going to make it worse. And to me, the whole objective of your commission should be to have an objective of bringing to Radnor Township 0 net loss of tree canopy. And then it basically says we want to stop the loss. It's not we want to increase it, we just want to stop the loss. Then the question is, what do we have to do to stop the loss? One of the answers, I think, is reevaluate how easy it is for a developer or a homeowner, I'm a homeowner, to remove trees. The consequences of removing a tree, if the cost is 3%, a replacement cost, there's no real disincentive to removing trees. And I actually think this fits into the comments that Bob Ziankowski has made, and I heard him about the deficit of tree maintenance, the deferred deficit of how many years it is of tree maintenance. So to me, your commission, I think, ought to prepare to go to the Board of Commissioners and say, we want the commissioners to adopt a policy of 0 net loss. And then the role of this commission would be to help figure out how to do that, how to achieve that. One of the ways to achieve it is plant more trees, no question about that. With the big tree program, the other tree programs, Conservancy has been a big promoter of that. On the average, about 200 new trees get planted in those programs. My guess is it ought to be about 10 times that number, or maybe even more, a couple thousand new trees a year. But regarding the point about removal of trees, one solution would be to have an ordinance that says, okay, I'm a homeowner, I want to take out 5 trees which are allowed under the Shade Tree Commission as long as they're not legacy, but I'm going to take out 5 big trees. And I know everybody knows it's going to contribute to the stormwater runoff problem. I think an ordinance would be in order to basically say, okay, Mr. Sheehan, you want to take those trees out. We're going to charge you X dollars per tree basal inch of what you want to remove. And that would go into the Township Tree Fund. And that increase in the fund would create lots of revenues to plant and take care of many more trees. But by the way, I'm not a tree expert. Everything I learned about trees was from living in Radnor Township for over 45 years at the same address on Windsor Avenue, and just observed the loss of tree canopy in my neighborhood. Roughly 70% of the tree canopy in the time that I've lived there. And it's a big loss to me because I loved tree canopy. I just love it. I love walking down my street and having a canopy on both sides of the road. That canopy no longer exists. And when I walk around other parts of the township, I think there's a similar pattern throughout. But to me, we need to basically increase the disincentives for homeowners to remove trees, for developers to remove trees. The Township Tree Fund, I was here at the meeting where Mr. White showed the chart, and there were 2 years where the township didn't make any contribution. The contribution had been running $25,000 a year. The reason the township skipped doing that is my neighborhood, there was a developer who removed trees at 115 Stratford Avenue and was fined $60,000. That created $60,000 of funds. The township basically said, we got $60,000. We don't have to make any contributions for 2 years. Well, my neighborhood still has a huge tree loss. But anyhow, I think that a goal of your commission, and I would respectfully ask you to look at it, would be looking at other municipalities that are doing best management practices at conserving trees. Many of them have adopted policies of zero net tree loss. And the way that's measured is it's not the number of trees, it's the tree basal area. And make it you know, the people who planted all these tall shade trees in Radnor Township 70 years ago, I got to give them a lot of credit, you know. We are not following in their footsteps. Just another observation I have, the new trees that are planted that I've seen throughout my neighborhood many of them are planted this about 12 to 16 inches higher than the level of the ground, which doesn't comply with our spec for planting trees. They're so high that the roots are growing in the mound and they're strangling the trees. So many of those trees are never going to reach their full potential. But I think our ordinances need to be strengthened in a magnitude of, large magnitude. Otherwise, we're just going to observe the tree canopy going down and down and down. It'll probably never get to zero, but that's a mathematical issue. The practical issue is most people who have lived here a long time are aware of the loss of tree canopy. So those are my comments. Thank you very much. Thanks for your service.
Thank you, John.
I think that the stormwater problem on August the 13th, if anybody should ever have a good time to give notice to the importance of shade trees, it's one of them. Shade trees, as you all know, absorb a large quantity of water. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
I'm speaking for myself, not for the rest of the commissioners, but I feel we have, one of the first things we have to do is identify what we have.
Right.
And we have to identify what we lost. And I think there are probably ways to historically, in other words, in order not to be anecdotal about this, because I know how the Board of Commissioners are, they're not going to want to hear stories. They're going to want to see something that they can relate to as a fact, So,
Right.
So we can have further discussions and maybe
Yes.
even offline with you
Yeah.
about like some of the
Yeah.
programs you've come up with
Yeah.
to measure
And
this.
there are tools available. I'm sure John Hosbach knows about them. iTree, U.S. Department of Forestry software. You can put in the boundaries of Radnor Township and do a satellite view that gives you a view of the tree canopy, and you can then sample, and it determines how many sample points you need, and come up with an estimate of the tree canopy. And you can even go back in time and measure that by using other previous images. And basically, most municipalities that are on the leading edge of conservation of shade trees, they're well into doing that. Most of them, I think they ask for assistance from the University of Pennsylvania. It has this huge database, and I don't think it's that complicated to do it. So anyhow, in Matt, I'd be willing to be an unpaid volunteer trainee with very little knowledge of how to identify trees, but I'd be willing to work with you. I'm retired, so I've got time I could do that.
Good, John,
We'll
I'll
be
take you up on it.
You'll be our data entry person.
Okay.
We'll pair you with a tree knowledgeable person.
Thank you, John.
And John, just so you know, we met with Heather this afternoon at 4 o'clock on Windsor Farm Road regarding the 10-year plan.
Right.
And a big part of our conversation was really to beef up the streetscape on Cranberry, Windsor, Farm Road.
Right.
So that is a big goal of ours, for sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Just one final comment. The neighborhood I live in, which is across the Lancaster Pike from Manela's, and it's the streets back in there. In the last 10 years, at about 4 or 5 different new developments, we've lost the equivalent of tree basal area of 26 years worth of trees planted annually in Radnor Township. The equivalent of over 5,000 trees planted. That's how much our tree loss has been in that neighborhood. And the stormwater, that's a high area. It flows towards Wawa. And on August 13th, Wawa, I'm not sure if water came in the building, but there was about 4 feet of water all around Wawa. So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, John. I do want to just address those comments. I'm just processing. So I think what I heard you say is you're proposing that we should have a goal where we have net zero loss of tree canopy. And I think some of us who got here early were actually discussing that, and we really like that, because we would, regardless of what we actually set the goal at, that metric, we love the idea of having a data. Maybe it's data that's here's 10 years ago, here's 5 years ago, here's today. Hopefully we can find a way to obtain that. If not, the work that Matt's doing with the survey at least will give us a baseline for this year. So we'll have a starting point, and then we could actually say that goal. And then revising the ordinance, I think we will become educated more in the ordinance, and I think when we become educated, we're going to have more like, oh, these are gaps, or these are things that we can improve. So I think we will take that on. And the last one about benchmarking with other townships, I was actually thinking under our goal of partner with stakeholders is potentially doing just that. And I was thinking we could invite Matt, the person that we met who represents Abington. Matt and I went to a tree course last year, and there was somebody who was, I thought, quite progressive in what they were doing at Abington, and that's how we learned about grants and different things. So we could look at doing that, plus any other townships that we think, hey, they're doing a great job.
Right.
So.
Right. Other cities' ordinances, City of Atlanta, very progressive ordinance.
Okay.
If a developer or property owner wants to remove a large quantity of trees, they pay a price of X dollars per basically square inch of tree removed. There are hundreds of municipalities with ordinances, and I'd say there are some that are on the leading edge, and they're not hard to find. And stormwater is a huge driver of what's in it for the municipality. And one of the reasons being, compared to putting, like on Windsor Avenue, the area of Windsor, Banbury, and next to the Wawa there, Francis Avenue, the township stormwater is proposing putting underground cisterns under that area that would, last year at maximum, they would store 90,000 cubic feet of water. I'm not sure how many cubic feet are in an Olympic swimming pool, but it may be enough to carry that amount of water. Basically, to prevent that water from flowing into further downhill. Planting trees to capture a lot of stormwater is much cheaper than putting underground infrastructure. The engineering work to put this cistern under Windsor Avenue, Francis, and Banbury, the township's already spent about $150,000, just engineering fees. And the project itself would be in the $1 million range.
Yeah.
If that neighborhood was heavily planted with shade trees, evergreen trees, it wouldn't solve that problem, but it might prevent it from getting worse by 10 or 15%. And it would probably alleviate the problem. So with all the attention on Radnor on stormwater management, stormwater fee to each property owner, and the question I have is whether at the rate of tree loss, whatever it is, will whatever the township is planning to do with infrastructure projects, hard infrastructure, will it even keep up with the degradation of tree canopy, which is contributing to the stormwater loss? I'm not sure if anybody really knows that. So But you heard my points very well. Thank you.
That's what I wanted to make sure,
Yes,
that
you
I
did.
did indeed
Thank you
hear
so
you.
much.
Yeah, you
Go ahead,
guys,
Joe.
can I just add to this? You made some great points, and that could be our big fix, changing the ordinance. Maryland in 1992 passed the Maryland Forest Conservation Act, and basically what it said is that, let's say if you're developing a new development, a home that's on an acre, you would have to, if it was already forested, you would have to maintain at least a quarter of that forested. If it was unforested, you would have to plant a quarter of it. And that did help protect the
Right.
Chesapeake Bay. It was very successful. And
Right.
that would be probably our easiest fix.
Yeah. And it also contributes to one of the problems with the stormwater management is all the chemicals, the bad chemicals that are accumulated in our runoff, that if we pass them downstream, they're just entering into the waterways. And state and federal laws are saying you can't do that anymore. So Radnor's got a MS4 program. Trees absorb bad chemicals and convert them to good things. They do it for free. So to me, the role of shade tree is just huge in this stormwater problem. Besides beautifying the township, creating a better climate for all of us, less need for air conditioning. So I'm with all of you. Good, thank you.
Can I add one
Oh, of
thing?
course.
John, thank you so much for coming out tonight, and those are excellent points. I also wanted to add that I learned recently, and I don't know if this is a proven fact, but the school district had put in cisterns and storm management under the middle school field that are not hooked up. So they are infrastructure that are sitting there. We lost trees around that area. I know there's been some planted. So this is a really important thing to consider. I was told that all that infrastructure that was put under the middle school field, which was where the old middle school was, spent by the school district, is not hooked up to the storm management so it's just infrastructure. I learned that at a Wayne Business Association meeting, so I don't know who has, is it true? I don't have the answer. The school district might, but I think it's a good point that we spend money and what trees would you have to take down to put infrastructure in like that around Banbury and?
It would be the street itself. Completely excavate Windsor Avenue, big part of Banbury, Francis Avenue. It would take over a year to do it. And put all kinds of underground storage. And in the process of doing that, some of the existing trees would be damaged, the ones that are planted close to the street. We do have some added trees on Windsor.
Again, I don't know there was a feasibility study. I don't know what is the right answer, but I think it's important that we as a community explore it.
You guys, I mean, we really should explore this. I mean, what would be the process to require, if it is a new home going up, to require a certain percentage of their property be forested? Like something that really has teeth like that. How would we go about that?
What's that?
Somebody would draft it, and then we would send it to our solicitor.
And that would be, and I assume, John, that would be revising the ordinance?
That's correct.
Yeah. And, right. And then it would go,
We gotta find out the do's and don'ts, obviously.
correct, and then it would go to the BOC. That's how we got the recommended tree list approved, which is now an addendum, and then the bamboo ordinance is still, in flux.
Joe's correct. We should definitely.
Yeah.
I also would like to add, though, I want to caution our advisory board, that you don't want to be punitive in a way that does the opposite. So I'd like to think about being really sensitive to an ordinance that would be forward without being overly punitive.
But at the same time, I like John's point about giving them more disincentive to taking a tree down. It's too easy now. I mean, as a new member, I was rather surprised that our ordinance was so easy on folks. Like, you can take down a heritage tree and put up, like a 4-inch diameter one in place of it? I mean, it's nevertheless, they need more incentive to not take a tree down, to me. And if that's being punitive, we're here to protect the trees.
I just wanted to put it out there as a discussion, is that it's a big township. A lot of people, they own their own properties. They have ideas of their own properties. I think these are all great ideas. I just wanted to not let us forget that people own-
balancing act.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt.
Having difficulty finishing my sentences today, I'm sorry.
It's getting late. I would say, let's keep that in mind, the whole ordinance. Because we probably do need to become better educated, and then from there we'll know the gaps, and from there we can decide how do we want to change it, and then how would we get it approved to the BOC. And that's where I think it's going to be key, having a BOC member telling us, hey, there's going to be an appetite to approve this. This is going to be really difficult. We would kind of need a read there. So I'll give that some thought. I was looking at the goals to see, can I fit that in anywhere? But I think either way, it sounds like, Joe, you have a lot of energy around this. Maybe even you would like to spearhead this after, once we get educated on it.
Obviously should, okay.
Okay. That's how these things happen.
Well, no, let's face it, that is how we
Yeah.
could make the biggest dent
Yeah.
and turn our town back into a tree town.
Yeah.
I mean, Claire, seriously, that development on Bloomingdale,
Yeah.
there's no way that there should be all that,
Right.
whatever, impermeable without, a quarter of it forested. We're talking progressive here. We're talking new stuff, not, penalizing somebody that already has an existing house with a tree lot.
I agree with that, Joe. I just don't want us to forget that there are.
That will need approval. Okay, so the next items I think are all rather easy. 8 hazardous trees. There are 3 properties listed. Any questions there? Okay. Tree removal by township, nothing to report. Public participation, I think we've heard from John and Laura, so I think we're good there. Any last comments before we adjourn? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice evening. Thank you.